Hello, welcome to another episode of That Scaled. I'm pleased to have Cenk with us today. And can you introduce yourself, Cenk, and tell us about yourself, about the company? How did you decide to start or join the company?
Thank you, Arman. It's a great pleasure to be a guest of your podcast. My name is Cenk Sidar. I grew up in Istanbul, Turkey, moved to the US for my master's education, studied international affairs and economics. So I'm kind of an like unorthodox profile for a maybe tech podcast. I'm a trained political scientist and economist. But I found myself in generative AI space, especially merging or integrating my prior career within social sciences, political risk, social analysis, and macroeconomic analysis, combining those areas with the technology and AI last 5 6 years. In earlier part of my career, I work as a political risk and macroeconomic consultant for multinational corporations and financial institutions, help them to navigate risk and complex regulation, mostly in emerging and frontier markets. Of course, started around my home country, Turkey, and Middle East, Eurasia, Africa, but then expanded to the other regions that there is a high operational and compliance risk. And then that experience brought me to where I am today, where I started Enquire AI in 2017. We built a network of knowledge professionals in 180 countries. As of today, long story short, we have about 60,000 experts from all industries, all countries, all sectors, and we have hundreds of clients that engaging the experts on the platform through a efficient knowledge sharing tool called Network Pulse that we created, the patented product we have. But also, we've been building or knowledge co-pilot about a year and a half now that trained on our proprietary data in our system, basically, or platform generated data that is generated directly between the expert and the client engagements. So that puts me somewhere in the middle of the Gen AI, human analysis, and the technology. And believe this is kind of a very interesting, area to be in today, especially when all these areas have been progressing.
Great. So you mentioned in the knowledge economy. Definitely, if you look at the 10 um, highest value companies on earth, probably you should see most of the companies listed there are about data and knowledge, about the information, and that's really the economy we live in right now. That's totally different than 20 years ago. So with that said, of course we are also getting into starting the AI kind of era. We are at the
Mhm.
very starting point, but you have started that journey as well that accelerates the knowledge economy. And what you do, in a way, it's really at the centerpiece of that, right? So you guys are helping knowledge workers. You are leveraging AI technologies, in particular Gen AI. Can you expand a little bit upon that? That how do you position what you do with regard to where we are and trending up on that?
No, thank you. I mean, of course, like for sure, knowledge becomes such a centerpiece of today's economy. Everything moves super fast. It could be industrial knowledge, global macro, understanding what's happening. Like every single geopolitical crisis impacts like every even small and medium sized company now in any part of the world. So it's no longer only certain number of multinationals are impacted from the Russia Ukraine war or Israel Hamas conflict or even potential invasion of Taiwan by China, right? Everything is interconnected, so that requires for individuals, decision makers, and companies to be super agile and understand all this, micro and macro risks. Yeah, and AI definitely, or technology in general, makes much convenient for companies to be more agile and understand the risk and take action when they need to take action. So I gotta take a step back. I think AI is a very, like, broad term used in general. So I think, as Arman, like, you are expert in the technology field, and you've been around much longer, and AI has been always kind of a buzzword. Like, I think AI is usually seen something computers can't do today, but
Mhm.
the industry expects to do in the future is kind of more science fiction aspect of AI. But looking at what we've been going through today is mostly generative AI technology that put AI at the agenda of many people, many decision makers, and different media outlets that cover AI on a daily basis. And we talk about AI regulation, and the reason is because I think Gen AI, and more specifically GPT, did to everybody what Model T did in, like, in 20th century for industrial revolution, right? So we were talking about industrial revolution and mass production, but I think everybody starts seeing direct impact of AI revolution or technology revolution with the launch of ChatGPT, because unlike other revolution, ChatGPT or Gen AI revolution aims to mimic human judgment and human analysis or human behavior or human, like, or labor in general, so that it may have the potential to destroy more jobs than creates new jobs, unlike the other revolutions. So this is kind of why we're talking
Mhm.
about it. This kind of the context. But the knowledge economy, that, coming back to the initial question, knowledge economy is, of course, different. We need human input in making decisions, because every decision related to businesses operating in high risk geopolitical markets or economic uncertainty or industry specific risk requires understanding of human decision making process as well, because most decisions are made by humans in that ecosystem. If there's a geopolitical decision, it's impossible to predict irrational human behavior, because you may not know what other motivations may lie behind the decision, or what other motives can be exist. Like, in when everything is rational, maybe you can implement certain formulas to predict human behavior, but mostly humans are not very rational in business or politics, where political and business decisions impact corporations. So that's why my belief from day one was, even though all these other technologies improve, like AI or data analytics or big data, like we talk a lot about big data 10 years ago, we don't talk too much about it, but still
Mhm.
it's still, like, is about data and computing power and everything. So it's definitely related to what we're talking about today as well. There was a lot of hype about data about 10 years ago. There were a lot of companies launching solely data driven indices predict where the next Arab Spring can happen, or analyzing social media data and see what may go wrong in the world, in the economy and stuff. I think there is a little bit, rationale behind it, but to be honest with you, I never believed in that, and because, again, human component is still very important, and it's gonna be important as long as humans survive. So I was very skeptical from day one when there were so many quant geopolitical political risk indices companies, or any um, companies that launch in that era. And I believed in the power of and the importance of human judgment, human analysis, and human empathy. And that's why my company, when I started in 2017, was a global network of experts. We all start onboarding highly qualified, knowledge workers in throughout the world, and we created a profile for them. And they created their profiles on the system, and we provided access to the decision makers directly to be able to consult with those experts. But from day one, I had an understanding that language is the new data. So we didn't want to create that through like, non-written engagements or non-written, we didn't want to be like a professional services firm. That wasn't what we were doing, because I had a professional service company before. So the idea behind Enquire was to create a platform where supply and demand of knowledge can meet each other on an automated platform, and the whole back end work of who knows about this business issue can match directly with the right group of experts, and you can collect real-time insights from the specific group of experts within minutes for your question, for the problem that you want to solve. And we built a strong matching technology, of course, connecting the questions with the respondents, the experts. We built the foundation, but the most important, I think, the most important part of our vision was we did everything within our platform, and we start generating proprietary in platform data generated from top experts in every single industry, like country and issue, last 5 6 years. And when we created a library of questions and answers, on from subjects of like food and beverage import to Nigeria, to blockchain technology in Silicon Valley, to electric vehicle manufacturing in China, we
Mhm.
only generated content from the most relevant top expert in that specific area. And we knew from day one that just the human engagement wouldn't solve the problem, but the data that generated through like social data or like large like or web scraping would be useless, because you don't know where this data comes from. But in our platform, we knew that the data was coming from top experts, from the you know um, from the at the right time, in the real time basis. And we created this tool and open up to decision makers, and rather than charging them thousands of dollars for reports or expert calls, we basically, with this new product, we educated them that you don't need to commission 15-page report for
Mhm.
$30,000 from a top consulting company. What is the problem you want to solve? What insights you need to have? Ask this question, get real time content from the top experts for $300 within minutes. And you get not
Mhm.
only from one expert, from 5 experts, and we automated the whole process. And we created significant efficiency. Because imagine today, like if you have a business issue, you don't have time to commission a report. I mean, that business opportunity may be gone,
Sure.
in a week. To commission a report to top consulting company, you're gonna go, you're gonna negotiate, you're gonna engage. Let's say you have a contract vehicle, whatever, but it's at least 10 business days. Someone
Sure.
sit down
Can
and
you
write the.
can you give us some examples? For example,
Sure.
just a specific example, like, hey, this is the question, for example, right?
Yeah.
So one sample question, so we can get a better understanding of what kind of questions people might have that come to the platform and put it there and just collect answers.
So anything related to business, policy, and markets are the verticals that we focus. So we have a private equity asking about insurtech in United Arab Emirates. What
Mm-hmm.
players are available, or what is the competitive strength of company X versus Y.
Mm-hmm.
Or there may be a question about the upcoming elections in South Africa, and what areas of the country may be imposed to violence and more physical security. Or the question could be about how the recent European Union AI Act may impact like a data company in Italy. So the questions are questions that require some sort of strategic insights rather than tactical information. We're not competing with Google. We're not competing with open source research. You don't want to ask the size of banking industry in Turkey. You want to ask like why the company or the bank X is has a brighter feature than bank Y. And you would get responses to that question from top banking executives in Turkey, retired or active, and they will share their unique insights, and they would, of course, get compensated for the knowledge they provide. So the use case is very wide. We work with many hedge funds, private equities, multinational corporations, market research companies, consulting companies, because think from the consulting company perspective, they have existing relationships, but they don't want to build like a huge armies of professional services teams.
Researchers, yeah.
Exactly. So they can basically use our network as a lean model and network that generate content. So we work with almost every consulting company, and they rely on us to
Mhm.
generate content. And the content generated belongs to us, to the platform, but also we license the content to the users. So if consulting company X ask a question and get 3-page content from top banking experts in Spain, that content can be used for their client deliverable. So that was Armand the main model. So this still like this is a technology enabled marketplace model if you think about it, right?
Sure.
But
So, yeah.
yeah,
No, go ahead, sorry.
but the interesting thing is with everything happening in the AI space, Gen AI space,
Hmm.
open us a huge opportunity to become an
Hmm.
AI native company. And and now with all the data we own and the data generation capabilities we have, we start building our own co-pilot for research, and now we are
Hmm.
able to recycle the or Q&A data set and provide real-time answers. And real time, I mean real time, to the clients if we have the data set on the specific subject. But we created a workflow that we can go and get the insights from the experts if we don't have it. So we created a loop among technology, data, and AI, where AI learns from human experts, and or human experts learn from AI on the same unified platform. So we became more like a knowledge network, combining AI and human rather than being an expert network, providing professional services to decision makers in the industry.
Yeah, no, that's great because the more quality content, in this case, you are really not collecting just any content. You are collecting quality content, and the more quality content you collect, the system gets smarter. So the value that you are creating is really increasing by the amount of quality content you collect. And then AI is boosting it because then it's really getting on top of it and building that kind of model and language model underneath, and then starting to even, amplify the value that you are creating. So that's great. Is there any particular vertical that, for example, you may say healthcare is the most active, or, for example, uh, geopolitical, or whatever? Is there any particular domain or vertical that you may say that's really where we are shining and we are getting a lot of inquiries?
I mean, great question. I think we were a bit brave at the beginning, and we tried to cover everything. And and we have an expert network or knowledge network in all the areas. But of course, I'm coming from geopolitical macro risk world. Of course, the initial 5,000 experts in the platform were from Johns Hopkins SAIS or Columbia SIPA or Tufts Fletcher or Harvard Kennedy type, or my co-founder went to Wharton, and so it was more like certain schools, certain mindset. But starting after seed round and Series A in 2021, we really solve the power of the tool and we focus on the technology. And we realize as long as we have the critical mass in a certain industry and vertical, we can create high quality data or high quality output. So as of today, Of course, we are stronger in certain areas where we have clients that we do. Electric vehicles are an area that we do a lot of work.
Mm,
Semiconductors, we work with global risk teams, trust and safety teams at multinational corporations. We work with private equities. We work with venture capital funds. But venture capital funds, of course, they may be interested in seaweed food, technology development and satellite technology next day. We have former astronauts on the platform, and we have former ambassadors, or we have, owner of 30 car dealerships in Ohio is also part of the, because every expert, every knowledge asset we have in the platform have certain type of human judgment, human assessment, human empathy, human know-how that would be useful. And we're not being now, to be honest with you, like especially in the areas that we work and we learn a lot as a company, and as CEO, I learn a lot, of course. So we have very unique challenges, that we hear. Especially this is related to the first topic we discussed, Arman. Not everything is so interconnected. So you
mm,
wouldn't be surprised now a private equity is asking about, something they wouldn't ask 10 years ago, like why they would be interested in, learning about, space installments, or they want to
mhm.
understand how to launch missiles, because they may be somehow exposed to an investment, or their portfolio company may be chasing some sort of contract. So everything is so connected to each other now. So it's almost impossible to say, oh, we are healthcare. We are like COVID had a healthcare component, policy component, security and risk component. So during the COVID, for example, we were able to answer questions that covered all this, adjacent issues. So that's a challenge. That's a challenge. But every month we're adding about, hundreds of new experts. Sometimes thousands of new experts to the platform. We have, of course, we use data analytics. Okay, what areas we are missing, expertise. If we get new questions, we do recruitment on those areas. We invite experts to that area. So we were a bit brave at the beginning. So maybe that, that may have created some impediments, in terms of like, oh, we do this and then that. But our thesis was every single discipline is kind of connected to each other. It's very difficult to specialize or on one area. But yeah, but so far, I think now we passed that point because we have, a good critical mass in all the major areas, and we also follow areas like generative AI wasn't a term or expertise 2 years ago, right? Or large language models. So we needed to bring experts in that field, which means there were data scientists that trained on that. So we also like updating our like semantic search capabilities and parent child topographies for the keywords and stuff. So like it's a work in progress all the time.
Sure, and I think really Gen AI is helping you to democratize it, right? So, for example, in the past, if you were relying only on just particular experts to come in and provide the answer, as you are collecting more of these answers, building that kind of knowledge base, then you can really go there and just open it up in a kind of automatic versus more a kind of maybe manual style, maybe some kind of two plans. So that way you can open it up in a, uh, maybe to more audience.
Arman, I mean, that's the most exciting part of what I do now, because here's why. So like as I mentioned, like in the first 4 or 5 years of the business, we were upending how the intelligence has been gathered and distributed, right? So we were basically building a better mousetrap, because you need to consume some intelligence to make a decision rather than ordering a report and waiting 3 weeks. I tell you, you can get it in 45 minutes and get a report. But now we're talking about a bigger revolution, especially with the generative AI. And here is why. Now, with all the language data we collected, became our top asset. Because if you look at the large language models, you see significant commodification of large language models. It's very difficult now to differentiate OpenAI's GPT from Google's model, or Meta's Llama, or any other model, because they are basically getting the same data from the universe of data, and they get
Mm-hmm.
stuck with organic data, and they even start generating synthetic data. That would be a major risk. And all the core technologies, computing power, make those large language models very similar to each other. And what makes AI tools different is the data that powers those large language models. So that's why I think we now in the second layer of AI use cases. Companies like us, we don't have millions of dollars to build large language models, but we can take a language model, or we can even combine multiple language models with each other. Now, multi-model technologies or enable that. Like we can do Mistral, we can use GPT, we can use put them all together, or differentiator would be our proprietary in-platform data. So that's why we saw Reddit, almost a forgotten company, became again at the top of the agenda for technology media. So the data that we created, I knew that that was always important, and we could always benefit from that, because we knew that language was becoming more data, and that was important. But with all honesty, we didn't know that we could productize it that fast with the
Mm-hmm.
advances in the large language model. Because think about it, Arman, like I cannot open up my library of questions because there's a private data. Like if a private equity is asking about, or hedge fund is asking about a specific issue, I cannot fully open, hey, this question is asked by this company and those are the experts responded. For two reasons. First, I have a privacy agreement with the customer. I can't announce what they ask. The second, experts may not be happy if they responded a specific client question. And I mean, I have the right to use it, but also ethically, I can't, basically advertise someone, maybe say something controversial,
Sure.
not knowing that it will be used. But
Yeah.
this new technology or advances in large language models and Gen AI enabled us to ingest all that data to our own data lake, and enable us to retrieve intelligence when needed by anonymizing it under the name of our Gen AI copilot IDA. So that immediately created a utilization of our thousands of questions and thousands of answers. But most importantly, that made me think about the democratization aspect, because you mentioned that is very important. Um, Not it used to be we were powering decision makers in the enterprise world or consulting world or the finance world, because they were able to ask a question, get a response. Because they used to pay 300, we have an enterprise agreement. We're not opening up. We didn't open up our platform to everybody. That used to
Mm-hmm.
be like a minimal, whatever enterprise deal that we had to do, whatever the amount was. But this technology, specifically Gen AI and productizing the or existing data lake, enabled us to create a new tier of users, rather than now me going to Fortune 100 company. I can go to Arman Eshragi and say, hey Arman, you're doing a podcast on a daily
Mm-hmm.
basis, on a weekly basis. You are a consumer of news, intelligence, and commentary. So, Arma, you may be interested in accessing our data set, and I can
Mm-hmm.
charge you, $18 a month, so you can use that data. And the minute that you want to dive deeper on any
Mm-hmm.
subject, I also open up the platform. You can arrange a call, or you can ask a question and swipe your credit card and do 75. So I mean, it's exciting for me as as a CEO in order to generate revenues. But more importantly, from the democratization aspect, I can now open up the knowledge base we created to other experts
Mm-hmm.
on the platform, so they can also learn from other experts' outputs. So I will not be limited as an expert to make money on the platform every time I answer a question or every time I do a phone call. I can also use the platform to learn from your expertise in SaaS models or other areas, so that it's gonna be bilateral, two-way exchange of knowledge. That's the real excitement, because we remove the barrier between the expert and the client. So in our model, now there is one tier, which is knowledge worker. I can be a consumer of knowledge in certain areas, and I can be provider of knowledge in certain areas, and I can get paid to answer questions, on the areas I know, and I can use the AI we created to learn from other experts' knowledge, or I can pay other experts if I want more deep dive information. And in the platform, AI learns from human, and human learns from AI, and there's a data that powering those two elements of the learning process.
No, that's great. I think as AI getting more common and it becomes a utility that like electricity, you can use it everywhere, and we are going to use it. Most of us are increasing the usage of AI in everything we do, right? Uh, Regardless of what fields we are working on. Uh, the knowledge, however, is not going to just be more common, and the quality knowledge is not just going to be easier, it's just the way it is. So you have to really still the value of that kind of knowledge, I think, will stay high. And AI is just the accelerator to really bring more crowd, more people to use the knowledge and find the knowledge that is relevant to them faster, better, cheaper. So I think definitely what you do is great, because you are really focusing on building the knowledge base. At the same time, on
Mm.
the other side, you are leveraging AI and new technologies to democratize it. And I think the combination will work beautifully. And over time, the value is just moving up as much as the knowledge you collect is better and more relevant. So yeah, that's
No,
great.
it's a huge opportunity. I mean, of course, I mean, I just talk about how, that Gen AI revolution created a huge potential for a company like us, for a SaaS company like us. Maybe, in order for us to scale and, like, reach out to larger group of customers with the, productifying the data set we have. But also, as you mentioned, that creates so many opportunities for many companies, to build specific tools for specific verticals. And, and as you mentioned, data and knowledge are at the center of it. We used to use that term, data is the new oil, last 10 years, right? And that is more data generated, but there's no more oil generated. So this interesting area, but data is but now what we see is, like, data is really the most important, precious element of the AI revolution. Because if I have, like, large sets of, real estate data, I can go build an AI tool that, that can help, to, buyers and sellers. So, like, I think there will be specific tools, or it's not just like the data, but also how to generate data. Because if we have one data set, like, I see a lot of companies. I know that, Arman, you're, seeing that a lot. A lot of companies start building their, like, Gen AI co-pilots using their existing knowledge bases, but most of the time those knowledge bases are documents or internal papers or doc. Most of them are useless because, like, if a consulting company has a report on Russia pharmaceutical industry written 20 years ago, or even forget about 20 years, like 5 years ago, that doesn't mean anything in today's
Sure,
market. That is a bad data. They're gonna make your AI even worse, So,
sure,
like, how are you gonna create, like, data on a real time basis? What I'm excited is not all the data we created in the past, but how we will keep creating through the Network Pulse product on a daily basis. While we are talking, I have dozens of questions running on the background, and AI is getting better. So I think one, like, advice to any, like, startup founder or, like, a company trying to pivot now is, like, not just focus on the data, but how you create, like, real time data that gonna be useful. It may not be, some data may must be very, like, time sensitive. Some data may be a little bit, maybe, more like time agnostic. But I think we live in a very interesting time, especially when, large foundational model companies like launching features, and that make so many AI startups irrelevant because they don't have anything authentic. They just
Mhm.
work on one AI feature, like let's say, I mean, like a lot of companies like created meeting notes, AI meeting assistant, I mean, or taking notes or translation, or just talk about AI translation. Now ChatGPT does the AI translation. Why? How an AI translation company can survive? Like even in a two-way, they're doing simultaneous translation. So I think it's things move so fast. But one thing I know, I'm very confident about my business and my startup because I have data, I have human network, and
Mhm.
I have the tool who would create more data using the human network we have, and the human network is growing on a daily basis, and data is growing on a daily basis, and of course we do our best to fine tune or the model, and improve the technology, make the matching better with the in platform data we generate. So it's such an interesting and challenging time for any entrepreneur in AI and tech space, but also provides so many opportunities for those who can think out of the box and can understand what solutions would survive next 3 5 years. I think it's impossible to plan beyond 5 years at that point. I think that's why I'm looking like next 5 years. In 5 years,
Sure.
like, we don't know, AGI or whatever, so we can be living in a different world. But 5 years is my focus point right now.
Absolutely. No, that's definitely a great hybrid model that you guys have between human and AI, and collecting knowledge from human, building the right and quality kind of knowledge base, and then, expanding it using AI and democratizing it. Now, a question that is more about really particular domains. Let's say somebody builds a knowledge base around a very, very particular domain. Let's say, for
Mhm,
example, car repair. I just wanted
mhm,
to answer the questions about any car repair question that you might have. Is this something that you see your company either cater the platform to those kind of things and say, hey, this is the platform we have built and we can make it available to other companies taking it and building that knowledge base? Or do you see
mhm.
you yourself actually doing it, going to different domains and just coming up with
Yeah.
very, very specific domain and say, this is really the knowledge base for that particular domain and we are going to, get it started?
No, great question. So we build a SaaS solution for our technology. So I don't think we go and build like vertical specific knowledge bases, because that requires building the network, building the expertise, and of course in our platform, since business. I mean, I mentioned about crazy examples how granular questions we can answer in the platform. So
Sure,
there are questions about pool, like billiard tables in Spain, and what kind of company. I mean, or what kind of wood they use in billiard,
sure.
tables in Spain. I mean, those are super granular. I'm usually thinking, oh, we're probably not gonna have like expert population to answer. Then we have experts like answering, and I'm like shocked most of the time. So we won't like build like a legal, Q&A database, or accounting Q&A database, or car repair, or
Mhm.
cardiology, like a medical, those are regulated areas, but I'm just giving an
Sure,
example. But
sure.
our technology is agnostic. So we work with some companies, uh, you know, consulting companies mostly at this point, but in the future, we had a conversation with a hospital network, because imagine,
Mhm.
like, the tool is as good as the experts in the platform. If you're a hospital network, you have 500 cardiologists, the part of your network, and you trust those cardiologists because they're your doctors you hired as a hospital network, and those are your people. So you can run a very sensitive question. So our technology is applicable to almost anything related to knowledge. We have customization of keywords, matching technology, the tool, exactly like how the question is being pushed and how the answers are coming, how AI is reading every response and rating it. Everything is customizable. So technically, we could build knowledge bases for
Mhm.
different organizations in order for them to build the AI copilot.
Mm-hmm.
We have different models. We have a model that we basically provide the tool, and they host the or application on their premises, and we don't even see the data. So they build their own data sets and they make their copilot much stronger. Because I give an example, like consulting company X versus consulting company Y. Every consulting company that you can think of now builds a copilot. You know, uh, XGPT or Ask X, right? I'm not going to name, but their data is limited to their reports they wrote or their
Mm-hmm.
Slack conversations or emails. And most of the time, like, they're not structured data, they're old data. When we
Sure.
implement or technology internally, they can help. Basically, they can convert the head knowledge of their consultants and knowledge assets to institutional knowledge. So, and there are two advantages. One, they can collaborate with each other. They can break the silos. So a healthcare unit within Big Four can learn from accounting unit because there may be some relevant topics. And most importantly, they can optimize cost and time. But more important than that, what you ask, Arman, like, they can also create their unique proprietary data set
Hmm.
that would power their co-pilot, and they would make their co-pilot differentiated than the consulting, why companies
Correct.
co-pilot. So this is, I think, what companies and large enterprises start understanding. One missing element in data collection is the human assets those companies have. I think there are ways that you can ingest thousands of pages of documents, but how you get the head knowledge of Mike, who worked at Coca-Cola for 30 years and did a lot of, brand work for Coca-Cola. He's gonna retire. Imagine that employee would be engage with hundreds of questions. So basically you would replicate the thinking and the human judgment capabilities of Mike, and make him infinite and like eternal as part of the institutional knowledge of the organization. So we work with some large companies who understand that very well. But I think in the near future, I think we also want to create more like a off the shelf version of our technology that you will be able to get you're going to be able to build your internal ecosystem within weeks. We can technically do it, we just don't have the bandwidth of marketing and sales. So we have the technology. Sometimes we get inbound requests and we start building them. So we have a couple large initiatives that we've been working towards that goal. But I believe this is also one of the, like, two pillars of our company, because our enterprise and partnership levels, we can share our technology to help other companies to build their own co-pilots. And this is, of course, very exciting from the perspective of adding new revenue verticals for the business as
Yeah,
well.
no, that's great, and it can foster on both sides. It can foster really new projects or even new businesses. On the SaaS part, somebody can take that technology platform easily and just go and focus on processes and focus on building that knowledge base and building, that network. It's a lot of work, as you said, because you need to
Yeah.
focus on particular domain. But at least you have the foundation, you have the technology. That part
Yeah.
you don't need to worry about it, because it's by itself can be a little bit it by its, that part by itself can be a lot of work to really
Yeah.
work on. You have to have that kind of experience and expertise to build that software platform, technology platform. But if you have it, then you focus on what you are best at, meaning that you know that domain and you can work. Also on the large enterprise side, that can be very interesting, as you mentioned, because they can take it and then look at it from, hey, we are building this knowledge base internally for ourselves, different from monetizing it, or different from the way a SaaS company may think about it. It's still very valuable for the large enterprise, because they have a lot of expertise and a lot of knowledge inside the company that they need to capture and put it there and don't make it accessible to the rest.
And Arman, very very interesting you said that, because I thought that was like no brainer like 2 3 years ago, even like creating that kind of workforce collaboration. But the interesting thing is we've been working with some enterprises for that position, for that product, and we already have the technology. Like again, we have a patented technology and innovative solution. It was more seen like a nice to have addition or alternative to email all or Slack all or every organization. That is a great product, but I know whom to call. And it's almost impossible if the organization is more than 500 knowledge workers. Impossible that you know who knows what, because things are changing fast. But now it moved from nice to have tool must to have tool, because they realize now, and I've been talking about it almost like 2 years. They realize now what would make their AI strategy unique and successful is the proprietary data set they can generate. And the best way to generate that data on a real-time basis is like internal knowledge sharing tool they can implement on their existing solutions. And now I was surprised, like all these large consulting companies talking about Gen AI 2 years and stuff. They totally missed that point. And now they're coming to us and they're like basically, oh yeah, we run out of data now, like, or Copilot is exactly the same as ChatGPT, just and how we can make it up to like real time. And this is we have the active way of collecting data. So this is basically very revolutionary for enterprise strategy that we have. But Arman, I will be honest, and of course, there's much higher potential. Like we can do multi-million-dollar deployments on their front, and it's exciting. But what makes me start my day super excited is how we can democratize that technology rather than
Mm,
empowering large enterprises to build better co-pilots. I'm much more excited how consultant, like 25-year-old, like a junior associate at a consulting company or founder of entrepreneur can access the knowledge of other professionals within real time and learn from AI and collaborate on a unified platform. That's more empowering and that's more motivating, because we kind of creating a multiplier impact on new ideas, new ways to resolve problems. And this is basically, and that's why we launched the Enquire Pro with $18 a month now, or like experts can become a client, and we remove the barriers. Anyone, any 22 year old that start working this year at a consulting company probably is very nervous about the
mm,
AI and how his her job gonna survive, next 5 10 years. And I think they're right to be nervous, because no one knows, what's
mhm,
gonna happen in 3 5 10 years. Most of the junior analyst work has been can be replicated through AI as of today,
sure.
and paralegals, right? Those are
Yeah.
knowledge workers. So what we do is we helping them to augment their capabilities and make them more efficient. So if there will be only 5 consultants rather than 25 consultants, those 5 consultants need to work with AI and need to be efficient. And we want to be the tool those remaining 5 consultants use, because they're ahead of the curve and they're part of our Enquire Pro system. But also they learn from AI, they collaborate, they meet other experts. We also created kind of a mind network tool, like a LinkedIn way of
Mhm,
connecting with other professionals, messaging them, chatting with them. Because also don't forget, a 25-year-old working remotely now, most likely, very difficult to meet other industry people and get his or her next job. In our
yeah.
times, we
Yeah.
we learned at
No,
the office. We
absolutely.
had a mentors. So now, how they gonna meet people? LinkedIn is, who no one responds anything on LinkedIn or social media. There are no networking like events like they used in the past. It's very difficult to be like an entrant to the knowledge economy today. And my motivating factor is how we make those young kids that starting their jobs much more occupied and augmented, and they will succeed and they will be the ones who survive that craziness of AI revolution. That's much more exciting than helping large enterprises do with their co-pilots, to be honest with you.
Great. I'm so happy, Cenk, we connected and having you here. great discussion. I'm going to ask you as the last question,
Sure.
if you have any book in mind that you like it personally or professionally, and you would like to share it with the audience.
Sure. I probably do three recommendations. I think one, I'm a big fan of Clayton Christensen. Is like
Hmm.
Competing Against Luck is one of my favorite books, like about innovation, product, and thinking about what problem you solve. And you're not building a product. Basically, you're getting a job done, and what job
Hmm.
you're gonna get done with that product. I like that mentality. That gave me a lot of new perspectives. The other one is more tactical. A book called Funding Sales by Peter Kazanji is a book talks about sales and scaling, and that's also in aligned with the theme of your podcast, Arman, like how to scale a company from early days. The funding sales talks a lot about the early stage startups and how they need to build their sales engine. And the one mistake they make is like to go and hire immediately sales executives, and usually that fails because no one sells better than the founder. And so that talks a lot about this strategy. It was very eye-opening because of course we went through that process. The third one that I really enjoy reading right now, I didn't I almost finished, but Farid Zakaria's Age of Revolutions. It talks about different revolutions that happening or happen in the world, and how they happen and what kind of impact they do on societies, business, trade, commerce, politics, whatever you can think of. And I think we've been living through multiple simultaneous revolutions at the same time now. So we have AI revolution, we have information revolution, we have like multiple like we have a whole eradication of we're creating a multipolar world with US is losing its dominant power, and there are more emerging power coming and more instability, and that is happening at the same time with the AI revolution. How those different revolutions gonna intersect with each other and create. So it's very eye-opening. So probably that will be those three books that I recommend everybody to understand, or every founder trying to scale a SaaS company to understand from the micro model, like building a product with the Christian's book, and expanding it with the funding sales book, and then surviving in the age of revolutions with Clayton, with Farid Zakaria's book.
Okay, great. No, that's very thoughtful of you. Great. Again, thanks for joining us. Great discussion.
Thank you, Arman. It was a great pleasure.